Everybody, this is Derek. Welcome back to another edition of Bare Bones with Derek. I'm really excited to talk to you about this book today. I've changed my format a little bit here, and I guess by that I just mean I'm more organized. I have things kind of laid out here for me instead of going off the top of my head. So, without further ado, today I'd like to talk to you about The Freeing of the World, which is the first book in the Union of Man series written by A.M. Knight. A.M. was gracious enough to send me arcs of all five of the books in this series, which was awesome. I'm super appreciative of that. They'll be one of my favorite things forever. As far as this book goes, I saw it on Twitter. I was scrolling through. I don't remember who the artist was for these books, but I think AM had tagged them, and that's kind of how it popped up because I wasn't following AM at the time, but I saw it and instantly I thought, wow, those covers are really good. They grabbed my attention. So I just messaged AM and asked if at some point, when I would be able to order them, and eventually he sent them out to me, which was really cool. I wasn't expecting that, so thank you, AM, for that. Like I said, I'll forever be appreciative of that. As far as this book goes, I'll dive into it here for you. A generation's sacrifice freed the world, but everything they've done could be undone if the king remains incapable of getting an heir. A kingdom risks being divided, plots are hatched to find a successor, and desperate people gamble on crossing the forbidden ocean. So, the setting here for this story, we're introduced to two continents. One is known as the island, and I'm sure you'd be surprised to find out that it is, in fact, an island. The other continent is larger and is called the Plains, and it's cut in half, maybe not quite right down the middle, but there is a range of mountains that split the continent. There doesn't really seem to be any major cities on the plain, but it is inhabited. There's a couple castles or fortifications, and then on the far east end of the continent is World's End, which is just a really cool name. I don't know if it's a city or a settlement, but there is stuff there, and some of the story takes place there. But as far as the plot goes here, it starts out here. We have I want to give you enough of this, but I don't want to, I'm not going to spoil anything here. But the story, it starts out with a baby who washes ashore from a shipwreck and is found. At World's End, King Henry arrives with his army to dispatch rebels and take out their leader. We are introduced to the great structures. There's a tower, a really tall tower. We've got some trebuchets. There's 30 to 35. Sorry, I don't remember the exact number of trebuchets, but these things are massive. And it takes, I think it said like 20,000 people to operate all however many trebuchets there were. And that just blew my mind. Like, I couldn't imagine that many people simultaneously working together to fire these things. But why were they built? And there's also a half-mile tunnel that bores through these mountains that divide the plains. King Henry's wife gives birth to a daughter, and shortly after that, she dies, leaving no male heir. General Margarth, otherwise known as Second, devises a plot to secure an heir, but it is not a simple task. We learn that the plains is sparsely populated and is also a very dangerous place to live, while the island is becoming overpopulated or is very close to getting to that point and unable to sustain itself. While the islanders look down in disdain on the plainers, we learn that King Henry freed the world, leading to a migration back to the plains so that they can farm, settle it, and just spread out, I suppose. The story does go back in time to when Henry's father was king, how they planned to free the world, what they had to free it from. No, I'm not going to tell you what they had to free it from. I'm not going to give you that much detail. You got to read the book. And then what happened after, all the way through Henry's reign as king. The story also revolves a lot around Second or General Margarth, who is a planer. If you remember, I mentioned that the Islanders despise the planers. We also get to see pretty much his entire life, before he was known as Second, how he becomes known as Second, and even after that. We're kind of left with a cliffhanger with the kingdom at the end of this book, its future as it seems uncertain, building to what I think will be a larger conflict. There's a lot to like in this story. The characters felt real, believable. There wasn't a super large cast of characters, which was okay because we got to spend a lot of time with the characters that we did have, which I liked. I think Second was probably the one that we spend the most time with, but he's certainly not the only character. And he's a planner. I really liked him. And then as things went through the story, I kind of wondered how much I should like this guy. I think overall his intentions are good. That doesn't mean to say that he always does good things, though. Some strengths for the book here. The story is told in, I guess I would say, somewhat non-linearly, but it doesn't feel clunky to me. You're not jumping back and forth between the present, the past, the future, anything like that. The story, I mean, you get a little ways into it and it does shift back a number of years and then works its way forward again, but it works really well. We don't really have a definite time frame. It's not like it starts in the year 800 or whatever year. It just starts, and then at the end of the book, it's progressed a number of years. It's almost like you're reading a history book, which I really enjoyed on this story. The great structures. As soon as I heard that in the book, the first time it popped up, immediately I was drawn. What are these? How many of these things are they? What are they doing? Like, are they still used or not? What's their purpose? And eventually you do learn what they are, what their purpose was, what they were used for. But I wonder going forward in the series if some of that may change. And I'm just going to leave that there. Again, I don't want to give too much away on this story. This world is also really big. There's a really good map on here, and the island, it does kind of look like England or the United Kingdom to me, I guess, as an American. I don't know if that was the intent or not, but that's what I see. It could somewhat resemble that. And then the plains, I don't know if that's meant to be the rest of Europe or anything, but it is separated by a small body of water, a channel, I guess, between the two, but it is a manageable distance to cross. And then you've got other oceans. We don't know what else is in this world, but there is the idea that there could be other lands beyond the oceans, but sailing across the oceans has been outlawed by King Henry. I don't really think that's a big spoiler or anything. We also, despite the world being so big, we don't get stuck traveling, plodding across, the continent to get to the mountains. It we know that people cross there, and the story just moves in a sense that even though it might take weeks to get from one point to the other, we're not preoccupied with that time. The story keeps moving at a good pace, which I appreciated. While sometimes I do like that in a story where it slows down, this one it kept moving at a pace I was comfortable with. There wasn't any magic in this book that I can recall. At least not yet. I'm pretty confident in saying that there's no magic in this first book. I don't know what will happen going forth. Maybe we'll get some of that. And if we don't, I don't think from what we've seen on this that there needs to be any magic. It will work well without it. That being said, though, humans are not the only inhabitants of this world. There are at least one other race of beings. Again, I'm not going to give you too much detail on that. And there are obviously other threats too. Again, read the story, dig into it because this was very different from what I've seen in other fantasy books. It doesn't feel like a traditional fantasy book to me, which I really liked. Weaknesses, and I don't even want to label this as like a weakness type thing. I don't know what other word to call it. So AM, these were definitely not weak points. They were things that as I read, I noticed. So this first one here, well, again, I just want to say that I had a hard time putting this book down once I got into it. The second half of the book I read in about a day. I could not stop, and I had the time to do it, and I wanted to get through it. This is the first time that I was able to read a book before it was released, which for me was a super cool feeling. It is April 8th today. This book will release on Thursday, April 10th, I believe. Though this episode will probably come out somewhere closer to book two's release. Because if I remember correctly, it's going to be like 3 to 4 weeks before the second book is launched, and then another 3 to 4 weeks after that for the third, and so on until all five books are out. But two things that I would mention here is the title of the book, The Freeing of the World. It was used quite a bit in the story, and just from like my personal experience with what I've read, sometimes you get a name drop for the book, but it's usually just once. And so that kind of caught me off guard a little bit at first. But as I progressed through the story, I learned that freeing of the world was an actual in world event that took place. It was a major historical event to this world. And once I got that, it made sense why it was used. It's it feels like this world is kind of hitting like a renaissance of sorts. The world's been freed, and now technology, education, society is going to progress at a much faster rate because there's not a threat there to stop them, or at least the major threat that they freed the world from isn't there anymore. The other thing is I felt like some of these chapters, well, none of them were super long or anything like that. Sometimes I felt like they maybe ended a little abruptly, and that's, I think, a me thing. I just wasn't quite ready for it to end. I felt like maybe I was going to get more, and then I turned the page, and then it was a new chapter. But I also don't think that this was a bad thing because it kept me wanting to read more in that case. Like, oh, it's kind of like you got mini cliffhangers a little bit in some of these chapters, and I wanted to just keep going, and it's basically what I did with the second half of this book. I just kept going. So again, it's hard to label that as a negative. It just drove me to want to read it. But I don't feel like I was missing any information in the story. Everything that I got made sense. I feel where it's going is making sense. And I'm really excited to start the second book, though I don't know when I'm going to be able to do that. I might have to circle back to it, unfortunately. But it's definitely going to be a series that I finish. If you like military fantasy, I think you're going to like this book a lot. I don't know that it falls under like the epic fantasy genre, but I do feel like it's going to be pretty epic in scope. I feel like just from like the titles of these books, like it's if you want fighting, there's going to be a lot of fighting and battles. It's going to be pretty grand on scale. It just doesn't have like magic or magical creatures, which is something I associate more with like the epic fantasy genre. And that's not a knock on the book, it's just a different style. There's a lot of political maneuvering, there's plotting, backstabbing, all that type of stuff. And to me, the events and characters, it feels like everything is well thought out, and it's only going to get bigger on scale, like I mentioned here. And again, I cannot wait to keep going in this series. Overall, I would give this 4.5 stars out of 5. This is AM's debut novel. Again, I love the covers on all these books. They look great. I would love to hear what other people think when they get a chance to read this, or if others out there, I know AM sent out a lot of arcs, physical arcs. So I don't know if everybody's gotten through them yet. Again, and I've only just gotten through the first book, but if you've read this, let me know what you think. Let me know if you agree. I would love to hear your thoughts on it. I'm also hoping to get to chat with AM sometime in the near future here as well. got some questions here. I'm going to try to develop some more, and I'd be really excited to do that and discuss that and just see where our conversation would go. We'll see if stars align and schedules align and all that to make that happen. But in the meantime, hope you enjoyed this episode. Again, let me know what you think. It would be great if you subscribed, liked the video, all that good stuff. I don't usually like to ask for that type of stuff, but that's just kind of the nature of the beast. So I hope everybody has a great rest of your night, day, whatever time of day you're listening to this, and we'll talk soon.